Thank you for joining us today, kicking off day one of our annual QA ATL conference. I'm Costa Avradopoulos, the president of AQAA. So I wanted to kind of really quickly tell you, some of you may not be familiar with what AQAA is. AQAA is a part of QAI, which is celebrating their 40th anniversary. And you may not realize this, but QAI has over 300 chapters in 40 countries. So it's a very old and prestigious and broad organization, global organization now. The Atlanta chapter was founded in 1984, and we have had in and out close to 900 members of AQAA, so pretty active community. Almost 200,000 people trained worldwide in QAI, and they offer, of course, the certification program where you can become a certified tester, certified manager, and QA manager, and whatnot. QAI itself hosts a conference every May. They did not have one this year, so I thought we could do something similar for our annual conference, and that's why we decided to expand the format, going from just a single-day conference to a 5-day, since we switched to the virtual format. So we have 5 pillars for AQAA. Our mission is basically education, networking, certification, camaraderie, and career advisory. So education comes in the form of one-on-one coaching, as well as formal workshops. We also have, of course, for a lot of normally for in-person, we're doing a lot of networking, sharing contact information. As I mentioned earlier, there's many certification programs available, and the camaraderie is always nice. Getting to know, I've made many friends in the AQA organization over the years. And then career advisory, helping people that are in transition. Maybe you're looking to get into QA for the first time. We offer that as a service to our members as well. Here's a quick snapshot of our 2020 board. As I mentioned, I'm the president. We have in the room with me here, Susan Locke is our meetings and events chair. We have Diane Walker, our treasurer. Ken is our membership chair. We have, and as I mentioned, our career outplacement, Leslie Youssef, and rounded out, Stacy is our social chair. We are hiring, as the slide says. So if you're interested in volunteering and being part of a really cool volunteering and being part of a really cool organization, please reach out to us at info@aqa.org. All right, so connect with us. These tons of ways to reach us. We have a meetup.com group. We have a LinkedIn group. I strongly encourage everyone to join our Slack channel. The URL's listed there. That way, if you want to do some of that networking, kind of feel like you're still at a conference, you can network with fellow testers, fellow attendees. We'll have some conversations and interesting things going on in there. So again, strongly encourage you to participate in that. And of course, we have some of the other social channels there as well on the screen. Career services, as we mentioned, Leslie and Youssef offer that. Very valuable service. I have participated in this as a chair over the years and seen many people that have needed this benefit greatly. So again, if you're interested in this service and you're not a member, think about joining as a member of AQAA. You can get things like the resume and LinkedIn makeover, but also more importantly, some of the one-on-one coaching for career coaching, job strategy. Education, so in normal pre-COVID times, we did have boot camps, one-day workshops. Hope to start bringing some of those back again, maybe even some of them virtually soon. So I know we've had the most popular ones have been around DDD and Selenium test automation. All right, so we do, as I mentioned, have a monthly meetup. Next month's meetup is around Agile. We have one of our sponsors, Zenergy Technology, is speaking next month. So hope you'll join us for that as well. And our agenda for today, so you can see this on the website. On deck next, we have Mike Lyles will be opening with us for our keynote. And then Seb will be talking to us about living documentation, Bob Cruz, risk and agile, and then Frank's talking about where we're headed with automated testing, and Phil Liu, looking forward to that talk on 7 test automation mistakes. We'll round it out for us at the end of the day. So a few housekeeping tips, some of the logistics. So webinar is a little bit different from maybe some of the other Zoom products that you might have used. You'll notice that as an attendee, you cannot turn on your video or talk, but please do send your questions into the Q&A. You can also chat, of course. We will be sending out a new link. So if you're wondering how to get into tomorrow's session, that will be going out this evening for day 2. So you'll get a different Zoom link each and every day. So make sure you be on the lookout for that. And again, if you have any issues, please reach out in our Slack channel and we can work through and try to troubleshoot any issues with trying to connect with Zoom. So that link is up there again for communications. And of course, we will be doing prize giveaways. Every day this week, we will be doing a giveaway at the closing. So that's around, I believe, 6:15 is our last session. So around 6:15, stay tuned for a random giveaway from one of our 5 sponsors that are participating in the giveaway. We couldn't do any of this without our wonderful and generous support from our sponsors. I'm very pleased to introduce Jen. So Jen is CEO of AI App Store, and Jennifer Benin is a thought leader in technology and just at the forefront of everything, whether it's AI or just doing things that are game-changing in terms of just making an impact in the world, really, with a lot of social things. So I've known Jennifer for at least 10, 12 years now, so very pleased and honored to have her participate with us. So Jennifer?
Thanks, Costa, and we're so happy to be here, so welcome everyone. Super honored to see the lineup at this event. When Costa told me he was doing this virtually, I was incredibly impressed at all of the industry thought leaders that are coming together to be here to share knowledge and information during this time. So we're excited to be part of that group and really looking forward to, I can tell all of you, I interviewed a lot of these speakers prior to the event to figure out what they were going to talk about and get people excited about the topics they have. And I'm really looking forward to each and every one, some of the unique format things that Costa has on deck. So I hope everyone really enjoys the event. We've been a sponsor with Costa of AQAA. We're not even based in Atlanta. We're based out of Minneapolis, but really believe in the mission and what AQAA does and what they bring to the community. So we're happy to be a sponsor of the event as well as of AQAA and support the mission of what they're doing. The one thing I will mention for you guys is if you don't see it later this week or if you don't attend any of the talks I'm doing, we're doing a UN takeover on October 24th. It's the 75th birthday of the United Nations, and we're going to have youth take over the UN. And so in collaboration with some folks in the entertainment space, Pitbull's anthem, "We Will Win," and we will overcome. We're going to have some youth doing new extended reality videos with entertainers being part of the discussions and giving some of their insights about what they're learning, being part of building new strategies and new technologies. We think that's pretty exciting. As Costa said, we love working with game-changing technologies, and right now I feel our youth are a big part of that game changer. So tune in later this week if you want to hear more about that, or contact us if you're interested in being a part of that. But right now, I think our youth are a big part of what we are doing at the AI App Store and engaging them in building and shaping the future we'll all live with. So everyone enjoy the event. Costa, thanks for the wonderful introduction, and I hope you all enjoy this. And I'm super excited to hear Mike. He's awesome, so I can't wait for his keynote. Phil later in the day, Seb, I mean, it's an awesome day, so you're all just very lucky to get to hear all these folks all on the same day. So looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen. Appreciate you. I wanted to go ahead and introduce Mike Lyles, our keynote. We have had him on several times for AQAA as part of our monthly meetup, but I've known Mike for, gosh, at least 10 years now, and he has just been out there in terms of a prominent thought leader in the space. He's had over 100 presentations over the last 10 years all over the world, and I'm just super excited that he just published his first book. Go ahead and turn it over to you, Mike.
Thank you so much, Costa. It's so good to be here, and thanks for the AQAA team and the group for inviting me. I did really enjoy the meetup we had a couple months back. We've made the best of this adventure that we've had with the pandemics. All right, thank you everyone for having me here. Thanks to Costa and Susan for having me. And I'm excited to be doing this keynote for everyone called The Paradigm Shift of Quality. And it's really something that has really stuck with me, especially during what we're going through at the moment. And 2020 has been a crazy year. So I think it's good. We're gonna have a lot of fun for the next 45 minutes, 50 minutes. A little bit about me. Costa covered most of it, but please reach out and connect with me. You can go to mikewlyles.com. All of my social media sites are there. I've found that through this pandemic and meeting a lot of people with the virtual conferences, I've made a lot of new connections. I do a lot of help and support, coaching, mentoring people, both in testing and career planning. And it's been a great experience for me to meet folks. And if you reach out to me, I'll definitely work with you and help you, and definitely connect with you on any of the social media sites that you choose to connect with me on. A little bit of background. I started out as a developer. I decided I wanted to do that in 6th grade, and I told my mom I was going to be a developer and I'm going to do that for the rest of my life. Half of that was true. I did start as a developer and I did that for many years, but I got interested in a lot of other things. And when I worked in the PMO, that really gave me experience in product development and software development, the whole process, and understanding clients and stakeholders. Decided I wanted to be in development management, got into as a PM for a large development team for a really large organization, got to do that. But in 2005, I went to a testing conference, training for testing, fell in love with testing, and decided that's what I wanted to do. I've started organizations. I've worked with several companies that either have no QA, like my current organization when I started 4 years ago, or some QA that they wanted to evolve. And I find a lot of excitement in doing that and building teams and helping people grow in their careers and doing great work in the testing community. As Costa mentioned, I've got a book that's out. It's 30 chapters. It's called The Drive-Thru is Not Always Faster. We know that's true. And it's 30 chapters. Each of them is a separate short story, easy to read. It gets great reviews right now. I hope that continues. But it's available anywhere you can buy an ebook or a paperback book. And for the US, I do have signed copies if you decide to go that route as well. But please check it out. I would love for you to try it. But I always said when I started speaking at conferences, I wanted to have a presentation that talked about one of my favorite things, and that's Oreos. And I finally got it. And I've done this talk once, but it's been a while. And one of the things that I want you to take from this is that when Oreos started, it was just a plain cookie that we know today. Nothing special other than, to me, it's the best cookie that I've ever eaten, and it's one of my favorites. But it was a simple ingredient, and it was 2 cookie wafers, cream-filled center, simple, and it worked. But then Oreos decided that they wanted to evolve to double stuff, and that's when things got better. I was in heaven. Most Oreo lovers were the same. Nothing major changed, just more cream in the middle. But then came mega stuff. And that's when life changed for us all. We realized that double stuff was not enough and that the original cookie was not even a thought anymore. Mega stuff set the bar. And for me, that's the one that I bought every time I went to the grocery store. It was no longer the plain Oreos. The mega stuff was the thing. That's the new Oreo for me. And then came triple stuff. And I started asking, can it get any better than this? I mean, this was the Big Mac of cookies, and you got 2 fillings, chocolate and vanilla, and all sorts of different various formats of this, but it was three wafers, 2 fillings. And I said, can it get better? And then, yes, I decided it could get better, because now you take my 2 favorite things, Nutella and Oreo, and you put them together. And I said, this is crazy. I've found my favorite cookies. They come out with all kinds of brands, different types of Oreos. If you want to have a fun time, go to the grocery store, go to the section that has Oreo cookies, and look at the dozens and dozens of different flavors and the different brands and different variations of this brand now, because Oreo has definitely expanded their horizons from just a regular 2-wafer cream-filled cookie. And they added one thing that made it worse for me, because it definitely didn't help my health, because they added the easy open. You no longer, when we were younger and Oreos were the big thing when I was a kid, you would open up an Oreo pack, but then you had to find creative ways to close it back or it didn't stay fresh. Now they've literally call it the freshness seal, so you can undo it, take your cookies and put them back. Makes it faster, and I overeat them all the time. But did you know this? You probably know all these things I've shown you already, but did you know that Oreo's website sells gifts? Anything you want. Now, my birthday was August the 29th, but you can still send gifts if you'd like. Sampler boxes, birthday gift boxes, baby gift boxes, you name it, they've got all kinds of gifts. They've taken it to a new level, and Oreo continues to find new ways and creative ways to take one simple idea of a cookie and turn it into all different various marketing ideas. And then seriously, I felt this was a disgrace to a real Oreo fan to have Oreo Thins. And if you're out there saying, I love these Oreo Thins, you're not a real Oreo fan. But joking aside, I found that with the Thins, which I tried, I just ate more. I still got the same volume. I just ate more of them. The reduction in the size and the cream just made it easier, made me work for it more. But then, if you haven't heard of the most stuff, that was when life changed for everybody, and it was crazy. And when it came out, I have to admit, it was almost too much, really, because when you look at the two beside of each other and people were going crazy over these, it's a lot of cream in the middle of a cookie, and you start asking yourself, when does it stop? I didn't stop eating them, but I did ask when it was going to stop. And what did we learn from this? And what story am I trying to share with you based on what we have reviewed here about Oreo cookies? And that is that the one way to achieve greatness is to refuse to accept the status quo. And that should be your core value. And don't let the world define you. You can think differently. And some of the greatest have tried something new, and they didn't follow others, and they didn't follow what other people were doing. Can you spot John in this picture? I think he's probably easy to find, right? John is a little bit different, and that's what we all have to be, is we have to be different. We don't have to do things the same way as everyone else. And as testers, some of our greatest creative things that we've learned, and some of the people that I've met in the testing community and speaking at events and traveling the world, is some of the greatest people that have done some really great things have been the ones that said, I'm not going to do it like everyone else, and I'm not going to be the same. Another thought I would tell you is, when I started writing my book and I started getting things together, I had a book coach. And she said to me, Mike, let the book speak to you. And I asked, what does that mean? Because I wanted to understand what she was trying to tell me and what I needed to learn from this training and coaching. And it made sense when she told me that don't feel like you have to complete the whole book today. Don't feel like you have to have everything in place and all the chapters in the right order and everything going and completed in your first draft. Start your first chapter, work on that second chapter, and as you write these chapters, you may decide that chapter 3 and 4 and 5 is a whole different thing. And that's what it means to us as exploratory testing takes over a lot of our lives, and we start looking at creative and innovative ways to test products, is you have to let the product speak to you, and you have to be able to think outside the box. Your company may be asking you to write test scripts, test steps, every single thing that you're going to do, and I could talk another hour on that, but you don't have to follow everything by the book. Write the scripts, do what is required to keep your job, and definitely don't go back to your job today or tomorrow and tell them that I said you don't need to write test scripts or steps. But think about how you can go above and beyond what is required to be very creative and very innovative in the way you test. And you've got to feel empowered to suggest a different design or approach. You may not always get what you want by suggesting a different solution or approach, but always feel empowered that you can. And I think a lot of times as testers, we feel like that we don't have that voice and we don't get the authority and the right in the project teams or the organizations that we're working to be able to say, I think it might be better if we did this, or I suggest that even from a design level or a development level that we should do this differently. And your inputs are important. You know, you're not just there to validate at the end, and we know that and we feel that, but you have to put that into action as you work with your teams. Perfect example of being able to change. 6 months or a year, about a year ago, nobody would have known what this picture was. Today, we all know what it is, right? COVID-19 taught us that things are going to change, and many times they're going to change drastically, and we're going to have to adapt to those things and be able to change with those events and situations, with our lives, with our personal lives, with our work lives, and most importantly, with the product as we talk about testing and how do we evolve there. If you look at this graph, who would have guessed that a year ago toilet paper and disposable gloves and bread machines would be in such high demand, and sales for those things were going through the roof? And you would have guessed, if you'd have asked me a year ago what was the best thing off this list to buy, I would have said luggage and briefcases are pretty popular. People are traveling all the time. People are going to events. People are doing things at work, and they need these things. Would have never guessed toilet paper and disposable gloves would have been through the roof. But that's what we have to do as testers and great professionals in our career, is remember that things are going to change sometimes, and we have to be nimble and prepared when it happens. The drive-through is not always faster is not just the name of a really cool book. It's also a theory that I have followed for many years, and that's the reason for my book. And I shared my book with a couple of people at a drive-through window recently, not very long ago. And of course, they work in the drive-through, and so that resonates with them more probably negatively than positively. But the person at the drive-through said, well, it may not be faster, but it is more convenient. And they were exactly right. I can't argue a bit that that it is more convenient. But in our profession and what we do as testers, just doing whatever we've done because that's the way we've always done it can't be there for the luxury. We can't have that luxury of just following the same routine and sitting there and waiting for things to happen, knowing that there might be an alternative solution. If you haven't tried this at a drive-through window, when you pull in, go in and come out and watch how fast many times you can get in and get out and get the food that you want and leave before the person that was in front of you in the line even gets up there to order. I've done this many times. That's the reason for the name of the book. But I will tell you this, that thanks to the pandemic, thanks to COVID-19, that the drive-through may be the only way. And we have to handle that, right? We have to handle the situations where maybe alternative solutions are not going to work for us, and we have to still follow the same routine, but we can still get creative about how we solve our problems, our day-to-day problems as testers, without having to resort to holding back and letting things just work themselves out the way they have. There is an old quote, and you've heard it. You probably work in organizations that have said it either in your prior lives or in your current life, and that is, we've always done it this way. As I speak around conferences and several events, a lot of times I'll get that feedback that that we've always done it this way. And thanks for all the things that you've done at conferences, and thanks for what you're learning as you go out there. But you know, this is how we do it here. And that's a shame for organizations to be stuck in that, because there are sometimes better ways and more creative ways to do things, and you need to be able to bring that to the table. But there are worse things than we've always done it this way. And worse than that is everybody is doing it this ways. How many organizations, how many companies do you see out there today that are trying to copy what another company is doing? Or testers that are trying to copy what other testers are doing, or teams that are trying to copy the same. We don't have to do things the same way, and we don't have to do them because everybody else is doing it. We can step out and be different. Now, how are some of the ways that we be different? Performance testing right now becomes very critical, especially in today's times. Everybody's working from home. People are using Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and other tools for conferencing. Shoppers are moving to online more than ever right now. And this is a trend that may not change drastically when the full lockdown is over. I think companies are starting to realize that working from home works for them, and they may not keep their offices, and they may still need to have high performing applications and systems that are working. And retailers and people that sell things online have to understand that a lot of people may be resorting to going online and doing their shopping instead of going into a store. So we have to be able to handle that, and we have to be ahead of that. We should have been ahead of that, but now it's calling, these desperate times are calling for these desperate measures. Same thing with security testing. It's always been needed, but it's needed more today than ever. With people working at home, companies sharing confidential information over the internet, and with the growth in these online sales that I mentioned, we may not see a major return to the old normal. This may be the new norm. So now it's time to get your systems secure more than ever. Many people had this happen to you that you didn't get your check. The IRS planned for a regular tax season, and speed to market was not the priority. Speed to market was the priority, and quality was not. And the IRS had everything planned for April 15th, and they had everything planned for how they were going to deal with the tax season, but they were not prepared for having to send out stimulus checks. And when that happened, speed was important, and speed took over quality. And we know how that affected us, and we know how that things turned out after that happened. Our customers, our clients, our stakeholders, they're all our lifeline, and they can make or break our success as an organization. Quality is critical to customer loyalty, and quality really here should be in the middle, smack in the middle of this slide, because it is so critical. Everything else is going to evolve and revolve around what we do for our customers, our clients, and our consumers of our products. Statistics will show you that when a mobile app fails, most people will delete it. And it's hard to get that customer back if they lose confidence. And so quality becomes critical to keeping people happy, loyal, and keeping your customers confident in your product. And quality is more than just functionality. 21% of millennials will delete an app just because they didn't like the logo. And 57% of users say they won't recommend a company to others if it has a poorly designed website. So we have to think about more things than just functionality when we're thinking about testing our products. And we have to understand that as we do our work as testers, it's about user interface, user experience, and everything that the users and the consumers of your products are going to feel and experience as part of using your applications. I noted that 26% of users say they will delete an app because it doesn't meet their needs. And as testers, that's where we go beyond just the test cases and just the requirements. We have to understand, what is our stakeholders going to do with this product, and how are they going to use it? Because if we get a fully functional app that works perfectly and does fine, and there are no defects, but it doesn't do what the consumer wanted or the stakeholder wanted, then we've still failed to deliver a great quality product. Which takes me to, quality is value to some person who matters. And that's a quote from Jerry Weinberg. If you don't know Jerry Weinberg, please get to know the late Jerry Weinberg and his writings, his books, because he has given some great things during his life in the testing communities. Everybody can look at a picture and see a different story, and the same applies to quality. And to be successful, we have to understand what quality means to everybody on our team. And if you take nothing from my presentation today, let this resonate with you. You must know how your various stakeholders perceive and define quality. These are some examples that I put together. It's not carved in stone, but when you talk to your organization today, tomorrow, or next week, ask your team to email you or to message you what their definition of quality is and what quality means to them. And I think you're going to find that quality isn't the same to everybody, and you have to know what that means in your organization before you can work together and have one goal toward a common successful goal toward having good quality in the product and the work that you do. Now, if your team was running a restaurant, what if your organization was building doing work within a restaurant, and how would things work there if you conducted business the same way? Or maybe we do already, but let's review and let's talk about how that the restaurant scenario falls into play here. The cooks, they're following a recipe. They're given what is ordered, and many times that's what the developers are doing. They're taking the order and they're delivering the product. And the waiter is trying to get the food to the customer, and the check-in person, and the waiter's also trying to keep the customer happy. And the check-in person, and I'm calling it the checking in person, that's really kind of where the testers kind of fall into place here. They come in blindly. You've all met this person. You'll be sitting at a restaurant. You'll be eating your food. Things may not be going well. You want to complain to someone. Someone walks up to you and they say, hey, I wanted to check to see how things are going. And you say, I'm very unhappy. My drinks have not been filled. My food is cold. This is wrong. That is wrong. And you know, good restaurants, great restaurants don't want to wait until that check-in person comes up. They want to be ahead of the game. And you know, when you've had a great experience at a restaurant, you've been the one that has, you've been at one where they're asking you immediately, how is your food? How is the drinks? How are things going with your meal? And they continually check in with you. And the one phrase that we don't want to use and we don't want to see used as we work in our organizations is, how did I miss this in testing? Because it inspires me to ask the question, well, how did we miss it in requirements? How did we miss it in design? How did we miss it in development? And not focusing just exactly on how did we miss it in testing, but looking at all aspects of the whole application and the whole process that got us to where we are, and what was that? What was our miss? It's not just our responsibility to ensure quality for a product. So what must change? What things do we need to think about and change as we look at the paradigm shift of quality in our organizations? Well, the first thing you have to do is think about why. Why are we doing this? And if you haven't seen it, there's a YouTube video out there with Simon Sinek. It's called The Golden Circle, and it's amazing. It's about 15 or 18 minutes, I think. I strongly suggest you to watch it and listen to him. He's going to tell you a lot more than I'm going to tell you in this one slide. But his whole premise is that great companies start from the inside out, and they start with why. And then he has a book called Start With Why. And your average companies or your typical companies are starting from the outside in, and they're thinking about the what and the how. And he goes on to say that every single person knows what they do. You know, we do that when we meet people at social gatherings, and when we used to, but when we meet people at social gatherings and we introduce ourselves, we don't ask, how do you do what you do? Or why do you do what you do? If you want to have fun, ask someone that. Instead of asking them, what do you do? Ask them, why do you do what you do? Asked someone that on a plane once, and it confused them. And it took them some time to answer my question of why they do what they do in their career. we need to know why. Everybody knows what they do. Some people know how they do it, and how they do what they do, but very few people can articulate why they do it. I'll give you an example. When I was working with a retailer, when I talked to my QA team, we talked about our why. And people started talking about, well, we ensure quality, we run testing, we have test results, we give input back. And I said, no, that's the what and the how. That's the what and the how of what we do. The why is bigger, and it's a bigger thing, and you have to know within yourself for your own personal growth and your team's growth, what is your why? And my why with that organization was that every customer that goes into the store or goes online is going to have a good experience. That's our why. Everything else rolls around that. I told Costa at the start of this that you know you're having a fun presentation when you talk about Oreo cookies and the Breakfast Club in the same presentation. And if you don't know the Breakfast Club, I strongly recommend you to watch it. It is my favorite movie from the 80s. But it was really cool because these kids were put in detention, and they spent the whole Saturday together in detention, and they had to write an essay about what they learned by being in detention. And their letter goes something like this: Dear Mr. Vernon, we accept the fact that we had to sacrifice a whole Saturday in detention for whatever it was we did wrong. But we think you're crazy to make us write an essay telling you who we think we are. You see us as you want to see us, in the simplest terms, in the most convenient definitions. But what we found out is that each one of us is a brain, an athlete, a basket case, a princess, and a criminal. Does that answer your question? Sincerely yours, The Breakfast Club. And I challenge you because we have to do that in our teams. These kids were from different cliques and different organizations different sub-organizations within their school. And they would have never talked to each other in school. Everybody has a role in your organization. And our old school ways of working in silos is not going to work. We're more the same than we think. And when you work with others and you step outside your comfort zone, you're going to find success in your organization together. So learn about your team members. Learn what is their obstacles and what obstacles are they facing as they work together. And the development team, the project managers, your product owners, your stakeholders, everyone, try to find out what is important to them. Again, find out what quality means to them and work together. How could they help you? Be supportive to them and have them be supportive to you. I've been very blessed in my last 4 years of work to work for a company where I am the director of project management and QA. And it's an interesting role to have because, typically those two roles sometimes clash, and the project manager is driving and trying to get the project done, and QA is trying to make sure that things are right and they're as defined and the stakeholder gets what they want. So you have to drive that inclusion. But the big thing that you want to instill in your organization is that we're all QA. We're all quality assistants, not quality assurance, and that we have to work together to be successful. I'll tell you, as testers, you don't like to hear that your job is not going well and things aren't going well. And you have to make sure that when you deliver the message to your team, especially to the developers, that something's not working, you're telling them that their baby is ugly. And we have to learn how to work together and to have compassion in solving the issues without pointing fingers and saying that, hey, your baby is ugly. So what about the processes? Because processes definitely have to change. And just being in a paradigm shift of quality isn't about changing tools or changing teams or titles. It's also about what processes do we have to change. And the one that I would challenge, if you're not familiar with mind mapping and what is mind mapping, then I strongly suggest you to get familiar with mind mapping. I'll show you, if you're not familiar, mind mapping starts with an application in the middle or a topic. It's a great brainstorming tool, and it's a great way to put your ideas together and collaborate with teams and organizations. And in this example, this is one that I pulled out. These are features within this application. And then people have added other branches from this tree to really show how the application works. And really, one of the things that I see a lot of people doing with mind maps is creating what they call PCO, which is product coverage outlines. And they're using this to replace requirements documents and testing plan documents and test summary documents, because everything can be installed right inside of this mind map and really show you coverage, show status, confidence, and many other things. So if you're not familiar with mind maps and you want to get familiar with mind maps, please reach out to me. I'll be happy to show you more and spend some time with you on it. Two really good ones that I find are Coggle. A lot of people use Coggle. These are the top 20 mind mapping tools in 2019. Xmind is one that I use myself, and I think it's one that a lot of people use, and it's really easy and it's free. So shifting left, we've got to do the electric slide. Now I've done 3 80s references in one presentation. Design thinking, we've got to be involved in design thinking. Testers weren't part of that many years ago, but we have to be now, because as I mentioned earlier, it's our responsibility to make sure the clients and stakeholders are getting what they want. We have to understand how to identify constraints, roadblocks, strategies, and define the timelines. You may be in an organization that decides what the timelines are and you're not as involved. You need to be able to take some historical data and help define how long is it going to take me to test this, and possibly retest this if I feel like that this application isn't stable and I have low confidence. We mentioned security and performance, and we should really think about those things early to influence our architecture and how we're building our applications. Every bit of that detailed and early planning will help you ensure quality in your products and how you're doing things. Testability, ask a lot of questions. Testers that ask a lot of questions get my attention, and they definitely get our organization's attention. You got to be very curious about the product, and you need to really understand whether or not those requirements that you're being given and the product needs are testable. Now, if you ask me, what does testable mean? What does that mean? Well, think about these terms. The app needs to be fast. Well, what does fast mean? What is fast to you? It may not be fast to me. Fast to me may mean that the application responds in 2 seconds. To you, it may mean a split second, a millisecond, much less than 2 seconds. So we have to get terms correct when we're putting together things like pleasant colors, must be efficient, easy to read, and cheap, because we have to make sure that everybody's speaking the same terms and the same language when we talk about that. And as a tester, when you see these things, your first question for the fast needs to be, well, what is fast? What does fast mean to you? How do we do that? And make sure that we all agree that fast means X seconds or Y seconds. Implementing test-driven development. Lisa Crispin and Janet Gregory stated in their Agile condensed book that we need to go from bug detection to bug prevention. And I agree, because test-driven development helps us drive that QA engagement and inclusion early. And it changes the mindset of the tester during those design phases, because you're now thinking about how it needs to be designed and built as you're looking at the overall requirements for the product. It helps you understand the final product, and it really helps us focus on development needs and what needs to be done. And teams work really well together if you're in an environment where you are doing at least a bit of test-driven development, if not more. I'll give you a perfect personal example. This was my car. I no longer have that car, but I used to. And when I had this car, myself and a deer had a collision, and it was not good, but they operated on it, of course, replaced the front end and replaced the spoiler and painted the spoiler. And if you notice right here, right in there, there were cameras, which were great. And it gave me the ability, this is the dash of my car, to see the left side of my garage and the right side of my garage when I pull into my garage. And they put it back together. They gave me my repaired car. I drove it home. And the first time into the garage, this is what I saw. And because the body shop guy saw 2 cameras that needed to be put into the spoiler, but he put them in the right place, or at least what he thought was the right place. He put them in a place that fit. and he put them in the holes where the cameras go, but he put them in on the wrong side. So the cameras were there, they were working. And when I told him that things weren't looking good, he said, well, it looked correct to me. And that's a perfect example of it may look correct to the developer or the team, but you as a tester have to decide, is that really how we want this to work? So let's talk quickly about then versus now and looking at the way it was the old ways. Testing it was at the end, it was scripted, shift left was desired, code and test reviews were done separately, teams did it themselves, and metrics was numbers. But today, testing has got to be involved in all phases. And mind mapping, exploratory testing is definitely a need. Shift left is now required. Reviews are going to be conducted together, and that's how we have to evolve with our paradigm shift of quality. Metrics has got to start being stories instead of just numbers. Automation is no longer a good to have, and successful companies are starting to use automation with continuous integration and delivery. And as automation really begins to grow more on the API side and testing space, but I also suggest to people that automation isn't the answer, even though it's needed and it's used. Automation is part of what we use. Automation helps us check and verify things, but to me, testing comes from your mind and a feeling as you're testing the application. Testing in production, it used to be seen as negative, but now it's common practice. You hear the term shift right now instead of shift left. You hear the shift right discussions about moving things into production and testing in production. It's a big change for us. Data privacy. GDPR changes were the first, and we knew that there were GDPR constraints within data, but now we have CCPA in California, the California Consumer Privacy Act, which allows consumers in California to request that their data be removed from any system that their information is being stored. And so we have to get in control of our applications today. And we have to understand how to secure that for our folks. I touched upon communication and collaboration is going to require you to be a good communicator, and understanding what your team is doing and how they're working together is going to be important. Escalations are not a bad thing, but take the personal side out of it and remember that we're in this together. Moving a status of a project from green to red is not as good as moving it from green to yellow and then yellow to red. Calling out those risks early. Reporting, constant communication is critical. We've got to get better at focusing on metrics that tell a story, not a number, and being very strategic in how we do those things. There's a joke that I'll tell you really quick because I know I'm running on time now, but I'll tell you this. There's a kid that was put in prison, and he was put with an old guy with a long white beard, and he asked the old guy, what do you do around here to keep yourself, busy? And the old guy said, well, it's what we do is we've told jokes for so many years that we stopped saying the jokes and telling the jokes. We just numbered the jokes and we call out those numbers. And the kid said, that can't be true. The old guy says, yes, it is. And so watch. And he goes over to the bars and he says, 37. And everybody up and down the halls of the prison start laughing out loud like crazy. And the kid said, that's crazy. Can I try it? He says, sure. The kid goes up to the bars. He leans up and he says, 37. Nothing. Nobody laughed. He looked at the old guy and he looked back and he said, 37. Nothing. So I'm going to try one more time. 37. Nothing. Nobody said anything. He looks at the guy and he says, what happened? He said, you did it. Everybody's laughing. Everybody enjoyed it. I did it. Nobody said anything. And the old guy looked at him and said, let's just face it, kid. Some people just can't tell a joke. So what I'm trying to say to you is sometimes you have to understand how to tell the story. And you have to understand the audience that you're working with. You check your health every day. You're looking at your weight, your calories, your intake, your vitamins, your exercise. But your doctor is only looking at you once a year, maybe 2 years, maybe longer. But your doctor doesn't have to be there to know that when you come in, you haven't been eating well and taking care of yourself. He knows, she knows. They know when they see you. So you have to understand what is your audience and who are you working with. And when you're talking within your team, you may be talking about your daily reports and your reviews and your adjustments to the plan. When you're talking to the doctor, to the executives, who is your doctor, they may want to see the executive reporting and the overall project status and what risk and mitigations you have. Prime example of bad metrics. I was standing at a urinal at one of my previous jobs, and this sign was there. This area has received a sanitation grading of 0.35. Do your part. I don't know what to do because I don't know what 0.35 is. Is 35% good? Is 35% bad? Is it clean? Is it dirty? Who knows? You have to be clear on what your metrics are telling you. Some metrics are really pretty, but they don't tell me a thing. Some metrics are really cool, Pac-Man, and they don't tell me much at all either. So you have to be clear in your metrics and the stories that you're telling. And this is a testing dashboard. Notice that on this dashboard, there is not one number on it. Not a number other than feature number 1, 2, and 3. But I'm saying no numbers as far as percent pass fail, percent complete, number of tests ran, none of that. It's all about adding your features, and I'll give credit to Nancy Killen and also James Bach for starting this. But the features are listed out. You're measuring your progress. You're looking at what's the intensity of how I'm going to test this application and what intensity have I achieved so far. And the big thing, the big metric that I use within my organization, and you should consider using in yours as well, is confidence. That's a tester's tool right there, is to talk about confidence more than how many tests have I ran, how many have I completed, what's the pass-fail percentage. It's about confidence in the product. How confident do I feel that this product, this feature is doing what it's supposed to do? So I'll say to you, raise your hand if you love your job. I can see those hands, right? Now, if I ask you to raise your hand if you want to get better, would you be raising your hand? Right. Let me tell you a quick story about Michael Phelps. And the thing with Michael Phelps was this. He said he just wanted to make it would be neat to be on an Olympic team. And the one thing about Michael Phelps is he won more gold medals than anybody in Olympic history, but we only saw him compete a few months on the Olympics. And what we didn't see was the hours he spent in the gym, working on his diet, his exercise, his time in the pool, and being a great tester and doing great things in your career means that sometimes you have to do some extra things beyond just the 9-to-5 job. My dad, this is me and my dad, this is me and my brother with my dad. My dad worked in a factory. He was a factory worker, and I always say that, he didn't come home from the factory and decide how I'm going to study to be better at a factory. Now, he took courses and he took training on the tools that he used in the factory, but we don't get that luxury in our job and our career to be able just to go to work and that's all we do is we work while we're there. Great testers are going to be people that do things above and beyond what you're getting just in the day-to-day job. And don't let me confuse you with this, and don't confuse this with being a workaholic. I don't expect you to work 70 or 80 hours a week. It means focusing on getting better both in and out of the office, and what things are you doing. So how do you do some of these things? Here's your social distancing options for today. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, webinars, meetups, interacting with other people. Those are great ways on social media to interact with a lot of groups. I love Twitter more than anything. I like a lot of communications on LinkedIn as well. There's a lot of great things out there for you to look at. Blogs and articles are a great way to learn from people and their experiences, but also share your story and tell your story to people that are out there. And very importantly, make sure you have a mentor. If you don't have a mentor, I strongly suggest that you do. Because when I started a survey a few years ago, I interviewed 267 people. And I asked them, do you have a mentor? And surprisingly, 243 of those people said they did not. And by mentor, I'm not asking you for a paid mentor that you're meeting every week or every day or every month. I'm talking about somebody that you have confidence in, that you feel can help you grow because they've been there. Somebody, as I've said here before, a good way to learn how to deal with something is to listen to those that have already been through it themselves. We can learn a lot from people that we respect, that we know that have done great things by doing the same thing and following them and learning from their experience. And on the opposite of that, one of the things that I've felt and learned as someone who works in the testing community is that I learn from people when I teach and coach and mentor just as much as I feel they learn from me. And that's the beauty of working together, coaching and mentoring, is I get that experience of learning what they know as well as sharing with them what I know. And don't forget that people know you for what you've done, not for what you plan to do. I talked about writing a book for 17 years. In 2002, I knew I wanted to write a book. And I knew I wasn't going to get it done in 2002. But I knew that if I put notes together every time I had a thought and an idea, and I started pulling those things together, that eventually I would get to the point where I would have a book, and it came into play. So don't just talk about the future. Don't talk about what you plan to do and what you're going to do. Put those things into action. Look at what you can do. Take your ideas to the team, to your boss, to your organization, and learn from that. And you have to ask yourself, what do you want to do? What do you want to achieve in the next 10 years? Are your goals lining you up for that work? Or are you lining up your goals to do what you do every day and to get there and to achieve those goals in your 5-10-year career? A lot of people might want to know what I'm going to do in the next 10 days, especially in the world we live in today. But I'll leave you with one thought, and I've started putting this at the end of every presentation because I want you to believe this as well. You have the potential to be remembered for all the things you're doing today, tomorrow, and onward. You don't have to be Sheryl Sandberg, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, and all these people to make a difference. You can change the world right where you are today, doing exactly what you're doing. But the question for you is, what are you doing to be great? And that is the end of my presentation. I hope you reach out to me and connect with me. I would love to connect with each and every one of you.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, Mike. Appreciate you always. We did have a few minutes. We had some good questions that came in. There were a lot of questions and talk around mind maps. Somebody asked the question, what is your preference for mind maps? There were some suggestions on Whimsical, if you've tried Whimsical, if you recommend it. And then the follow-on question to that was, somebody was looking for something more platform neutral that he can use across multiple devices.
So all of them are great questions. I think the one challenge that a lot of people are facing with mind maps right now is, in my organization, we have, if you're using a Word document or you're using an Excel or a PowerPoint document, Microsoft does a really good job of allowing people, if you're using OneDrive or using a shared drive, that everybody can be editing that document at the same time. And I don't think that there are many mind map tools out there at the moment that allow you to do that. If I'm on my company's shared drive and I'm working on PowerPoint, Word, or Excel, and someone else joins that document or opens that document and starts editing it, it just allows us both to work collaboratively. And I find that the mind map tools, I know Xmind does not yet, but they have responded to me when I've tweeted about this, that they are working on that. And I think there's another one, MindMeister, I think, is working on the same. So I think that's a big challenge because a lot of teams do like to have the ability to say, hey, we're all going to be working on this mind map at the same time. And I think that's coming. And I would bet that somewhere toward the end of this year, you're going to see products that are going to have that ability to have that shared collaborative work together. So I think that is, I've used Xmind almost exclusively, so that's the one I've got the most experience with. But yeah, I would say that's a challenge that the makers of these products have seen and experienced. And I think there was another question upon platform neutral. I find that with Xmind, I can create mind maps on my MacBook. I can send them to my Windows machine at work. You can actually use it on a mobile device as well. So I think Xmind has helped on the platform side, and I've assumed some of the others are the same way. However, like I said, again, the challenge there is really on the collaboration side. I see one here says splitting my time between 2 different teams right now. What tips do you have so I can be efficient on both teams? I think the question there is this 2 different, when you say team, are you talking about 2 groups within the team, or are you talking about 2 testing efforts on 2 different projects? Because I think that's a big differentiator. I could give you suggestions for both. If your challenge is around how do I manage my time, I think you have to define within your organization which one of those is 2 different backlogs. Okay, yes. So I think it's really a matter of really understanding with your stakeholders what is the priority, and of course the stakeholder is going to say both of them, or combine them and do the one. But I think you do have to understand which has the highest risk if it's not working, which has the most benefit to the organization and to the stakeholders that are using the product, and really make sure that those things get the priority review as you're working. And it's also clear, and it's something that I implemented in my organization, a capacity planning management tool, to make sure that we do accurately track the workload of the team. Because a lot of times, even if I'm your boss and I'm working with you, I may not know that aside from the 2 projects that you're working on, somebody else is asking you to do these 3 things on the side. So I think it is good to, within your organization, to have a creative way or a solid way to track what are the teams working on and where are they allocated. And if you're not doing that, it's a big suggestion for me that you do get very good at knowing who's working on what and what things are their priorities. I hope that helped some, but we could talk a long time on setting those things. But I think it's really being very vocal about what things you're working on, and making sure that your direct reporting manager knows exactly what things you have as priority. And if they're setting those 2 backlog priorities for you, then I think you have to sit down with them and discuss, okay, which one of these do I need to focus on the most? Which is the most critical if it doesn't go out on time versus the other.
All right. Well, once again, thank you so much, Mike. It's always a pleasure having you. And we're so grateful for kicking us off with such an awesome keynote, and look forward to seeing you again soon. All right.
Thanks so much, everyone.